Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are undertaking a mission to understand, really, the single most influential, yet often most misunderstood, variable in the entire world of commerce. We're wrestling with pricing power.
Right.
This is the ultimate balancing act in marketing. I mean, it's the only element that generates revenue while all the others, promotion, distribution, product development, they just generate cost.
That's it.
It's a lever that is so easy to pull, but if you pull it incorrectly, the catastrophe can sink even the largest organization.
It truly is the tightrope of business strategy. A company might perfect its logistics, design an immaculate product, and spend millions building brand equity. But if that initial price point is flawed,
It all falls apart.
or if the strategy around price adjustments is short-sighted, the entire enterprise is compromised. Look, understanding pricing is understanding value itself, how it's perceived, measured, manipulated, and ultimately multiplied.
Okay, let's unpack this using one of the most compelling case studies in luxury, the history of Tiffany & Co.
A perfect example.
For well over a century, the name Tiffany has been synonymous with, well, the pinnacle of American luxury and high-end elegance.
Absolutely. Think about the legacy we're discussing here. We're talking about a firm that, from its earliest days, established itself as a benchmark for quality and for price integrity.
They were more than just a jeweler.
Oh, much more. They were trusted to design the picture for Abraham Lincoln's inaugural ceremony. They manufactured military swords during the Civil War, and they introduced sterling silver to the U.S.
And that blue color.
That famous Tiffany blue. It isn't just iconic. It's a registered trademark that communicates inherent value and, exclusivity. For Tiffany, maintaining price integrity wasn't just about profit.
No.
It was about protecting the brand's very soul.
But protecting that soul became incredibly challenging in the late 1990s. The sources highlight this as the era of affordable luxuries.
Yes.
Suddenly, the market for aspirational goods just exploded, and Tiffany saw a chance to capture a younger, broader audience.
They did, and the result was the introduction of a line of much cheaper silver jewelry, the now iconic Return to Tiffany bracelet, silver heart necklaces, and other accessible pieces.
And financially, it was a huge success.
It was an immediate, massive financial hit. Earnings skyrocketed, I believe, for 5 straight years. It was a genius short-term financial move.
But that success carried an immediate and huge strategic risk.
A huge risk.
If every teenager could afford a piece of Tiffany, the brand equity would be diluted. If mass appeal replaced exclusivity, those customers wouldn't upgrade to 5-carat diamonds when they matured.
No, they would simply look for another brand that still held that mantle of high luxury.
Exactly.
That was the existential fear. The perception shifted from an exclusive jeweler to a retailer of highly successful, moderately priced accessories.
So they had to reverse course.
Starting around 2002, the reversal was strategically executed and I think fascinatingly subtle. They started hiking prices again, shifting emphasis away from the affordable silver lines in their store displays and their marketing materials.
What did they focus on instead?
They focused on launching spectacular higher-end collections and renovating their flagship stores specifically to highlight those, 6-figure items.
That move signaled to the market, and importantly to their high-net-worth customers, that their position as a luxury titan was uncompromised.
It really illustrates the incredible tightrope walk luxury brands have to perform, where pricing is more about managing desire and perception than it is about managing material cost.
And if you need further evidence of that surgical precision, look at what they did during the 2008 recession.
Right, sales softened significantly.
But instead of slashing prices broadly, which would have signaled panic and discounted the entire brand, they focused primarily on cost-cutting and inventory management.
They did, but they made one key exception, right? A very specific price cut.
Exactly.
Yes, they very quietly and selectively reduced the prices on their best-selling engagement rings by about 10%.
Which is brilliant.
It was brilliant. They needed to stimulate sales in that high-value, high-emotion core category, which, represents a massive lifetime customer investment.
But by keeping the general list prices of their other, more discretionary collections stable,
the overall luxury perception they had worked so hard to rebuild remained intact. They achieved a targeted sales lift without sacrificing brand image.
that single anecdote, Tiffany hiking prices to affirm luxury status, then quietly cutting prices on a core item during a crisis to manage volume, That really encapsulates our entire deep dive.
It does.
Our mission today is to break down the systematic six-step process companies follow to set and adapt prices, to understand the profound impact of consumer psychology on perceived value, and to analyze how technology is forcing pricing models to dynamically adapt.
Let's get into it.
To truly grasp the modern pricing landscape, we have to start by acknowledging how much the economic rules have changed, particularly in, say, the last century. It's hard to imagine now, but for most of history, haggling wasn't the exception.
No, it was the expectation.
Right.
That's a critical piece of context. Setting one fixed price for all buyers is actually a fairly recent commercial invention. Historically, in small markets or through traveling merchants, negotiation was standard practice.
So what changed?
The breakthrough came in the late 19th century with the rise of massive department stores and specialized retailers like Tiffany and F.W. Woolworth.
And they introduced the strictly one-price policy. Was that just about fairness?
Primarily, it was a necessity that came with scale.
Oh, okay.
When you have hundreds of employees selling thousands of different items, having every single transaction negotiated becomes an administrative nightmare.
I can imagine.
Fixed pricing allowed for clear inventory management, easier training of staff, and much faster transactions. It was an efficiency model that eventually became the market standard in the West, establishing the expectation that the price tag is the price you pay.
Now, fast forward through a century of economic growth, particularly in the U.S., we had decades of consumers trading up, buying bigger houses, more expensive cars, luxury goods, all often fueled by readily available credit. Then came the Great Recession starting in 2008, and the sources show a profound societal shift.
It was a shock that completely redefined consumer habits. When consumers lost jobs, when housing values plummeted and credit lines dried up, the ability to trade up just evaporated.
And that necessity changed the culture.
It did. This economic necessity, combined with a growing societal focus on sustainability and value, led to what we call renewed frugality. People stopped seeing basics as placeholders until they could buy luxury. They started focusing on maximizing the utility of the basics.
The examples are compelling. We saw a mass migration away from discretionary spending.
Oh, absolutely.
Instead of buying expensive daily lattes or replacing high-end watches, consumers were purchasing espresso machines for home use, downsizing from large SUVs to smaller, more fuel-efficient cars, and significantly delaying purchases of durable goods.
And this frugality extended into sectors that were historically, pretty price insensitive, like personal health.
That's a huge one.
The sources pointed out the staggering rise of medical tourism. Almost 1 million U.S. patients in 2010 traveled abroad, often to developing nations, to seek medical procedures that were dramatically cheaper than domestic options.
That isn't just choosing a cheaper watch. That is a life-altering decision based purely on the cost of a necessary service.
Exactly.
It proves how price elasticity changed almost overnight during that period.
It does. And simultaneously, the internet wasn't just observing this shift, it was accelerating it. Technology created two powerful, often contradictory forces.
Which were?
It drove market prices down toward cost, but it also enabled radical price customization and tailoring.
Okay, let's look at the incredible gains the buyer secured first. The internet means perfect price transparency.
Instantaneously. You no longer have to drive to 3 different stores. Sites like mysimon.com or pricescan.com instantly aggregate prices from hundreds of online vendors, effectively eliminating information asymmetry.
The lowest price is now just a click away.
And that forces sellers to constantly compete on the razor's edge.
And it evolved beyond simple comparison. We now have intelligent shopping bots that don't just find the lowest price, but scour for coupons, check real-time inventory, and compare reviews.
And then there are platforms that invert the traditional pricing model.
Like Priceline.
Priceline is the classic example of inversion, especially in travel. It allowed buyers to state, this is what I am willing to pay for a hotel room in this area, and then sellers, hotels, airlines had to decide if they were desperate enough to meet that price and fill capacity.
That's a profound reversal of power.
It is. It moves the price setting from the seller to the buyer.
And crucially, that online transparency helped reintroduce real-world haggling in segments where it had previously vanished.
Yes, nearly 3/4 of U.S. consumers reported successfully negotiating a lower price on something in recent years, on items like real estate, electronics, even medical bills.
So the confidence gained from online price research translated into offline negotiating power.
It did. Sellers, however, adapted quickly, using technology to gain their own advantages.
No.
If buyers can compare prices instantly, sellers can monitor customer behavior and environmental factors instantly, allowing for tailored pricing and rapid quotation times.
The GE lighting example is a fantastic illustration of this use of seller-side technology.
It is. GE Lighting handles around 55,000 pricing requests annually for their complex industrial products. Traditionally, this was a manual, month-long process involving deep data analysis.
A whole month.
They built web programs that evaluate 300 pricing factors, everything from competitor activity and past customer behavior to commodity futures, reducing the, quote, time from up to 30 days to a mere 6 hours.
That's a massive competitive leap.
It's huge. That ability to dynamically quote a precise, optimized price based on current market reality is a game changer.
And then there's the sophisticated management of scarcity and desire. Sites like Ruala, which operate as members-only flash sale sites, offer special lower prices to select customer groups.
Right.
This allows brands to liquidate inventory without publicly discounting the list price for everyone, thus protecting their overall perceived value.
It's the digital equivalent of a private invitation-only sale. Technology allows you to manage multiple price points simultaneously across different segments without cannibalizing your core full-price market.
Which brings us to perhaps the most radical pricing strategy enabled by technology.
Yeah.
The power of free, encapsulated in the freemium model.
Giving things away for free has historical precedent, of course. Think of razor manufacturers giving away the handle to sell the blades.
Or printers sold cheaply to sell the expensive ink cartridges.
Exactly. That's cross-subsidy in physical form.
But the internet enabled pure information and service products to thrive on this model. Adobe gave away the PDF reader in 1994, making the format the industry standard.
Right, and their revenue came from the high-priced Acrobat authoring software. Skype gave away the call service. They charged for premium numbers or connectivity to landlines.
And today, it's everywhere.
The freemium model today, perfected by companies like Flickr and Spotify, offers a basic functional service for free, converting only a small percentage, often less than 5% of users, into paying customers.
For what? Premium features.
For premium features, higher capacity, or an ad-free experience. The key is that the cost of serving the non-paying customer is near zero.
For a digital product.
Exactly. But that critical mass of users you build up, that establishes your platform as the market standard.
And for a real-world high-cost application of this cross-subsidy, we must discuss Ryanair, the European discount carrier often dubbed Walmart with wings.
Yes.
Their founder, Michael O'Leary, famously stated his ultimate goal was to make seats free.
And they are incredibly close to that goal. Their average one-way fare is staggeringly low, sometimes as low as $10 to $24 if you factor out taxes and mandatory fees.
Yet they're highly profitable.
Their ruthless efficiency allows them to achieve net profit margins of around 25%, which is truly phenomenal in the volatile airline industry.
So how do they sustain that low core price while achieving such high margins?
Through sheer relentless cross-subsidy. They charge for everything that isn't the core transportation service.
Like what?
Checked luggage costs around $9.50 per bag. A hot dog on board is $5.50. Bus transportation from the remote airports they use, a key cost-saving measure, can be $24.
And they keep looking for more.
They are actively seeking new ancillary revenue streams, like onboard gambling and using the plane exteriors as giant revenue-generating billboards.
These non-fare extras, these cross-subsidies, add up to 20% of their total revenue.
Which allows them to dramatically undercut competitors on the core ticket price. It is differentiation through radical cost efficiency.
And their cost-cutting is legendary, designed to enable that low core price.
Oh, it is. The sources describe the extreme measures. Non-reclining seats, removing window shades, removing seat back pockets, flying only Boeing 737s to simplify maintenance, and paying for fuel in advance to hedge against price fluctuations.
So every element of the experience is engineered to lower the variable cost.
Exactly, making the cross-subsidy model profitable.
That lays out the economic and technological drivers. Now we shift our focus to the human element, because as consumers, we are not passive recipients of pricing data.
Not at all.
We actively filter and process prices through a psychological lens based on past experience and context.
And this internal processing creates two critical invisible boundaries. If a price is set too low, it hits the low threshold, the point where the price signals inferior, shoddy, or unacceptable quality.
And on the other end,
Conversely, if it's too high, it hits the upper threshold, signaling prohibitive cost and raising the question, is this truly worth it?
The subjective nature of perceived value is astounding. Let's return to the simple black t-shirt example.
Okay.
We have 3 basic identical-looking women's black t-shirts. One from H&M at $7.90, one from Gap at $14.90, and one from Armani at $275.
It's a huge range. If you look closely at the product specification, the Gap and H&M versions are typically basic cotton or a cotton blend.
And the Armani.
The Armani t-shirt might be a slightly more complex knit, perhaps 70% nylon and 25% polyester, maybe stylized with a Made in Italy tag. But the material cost difference certainly doesn't justify a 20-fold price jump.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
The difference is almost entirely composed of brand connotations, styling, and crucially perceived scarcity.
The Armani price tag functions as a gatekeeper. By maintaining that price, the brand communicates exclusivity and justifies its status among its core clientele, who buy their high-end suits and evening wear.
So they don't even need to sell that many.
They also don't manufacture many $275 t-shirts because they don't need to. They want it to feel like a limited edition. The value is constructed by the brand's history and by the price itself.
This inherent psychological mechanism explains why, even when the overall luxury market suffered during economic downturns, unique, highly relevant brands like Panji Organics, selling $8 soaps and $50 oils, could still charge a premium.
Absolutely. Consumers perceived the unique value of the certified organic, environmentally friendly formulation, which justified the price premium. The perception of unique value bypasses that low threshold barrier.
Okay, so let's break down the 3 key psychological factors that govern how you, the listener, evaluate any price tag.
Factor 1. Reference prices. This is the internal frame of reference, the price we compare the current price against.
And that frame could be anything.
It could be a memory, what you paid last time, a contextual clue, what competitors charge, or an internal limit, the highest or lowest price you would ever consider paying.
And marketers are masters at manipulating this reference point.
Oh, definitely. They might position a new mid-range product directly beside an extremely expensive high-end anchor product to make the mid-range item feel more valuable by association.
You see this in department stores all the time.
Right. They segment identical clothing categories simply by price floor. The more expensive department implies better quality clothing.
And high manufacturer's suggested price, the MSRP, is the classic reference price manipulation.
It is. Stating that the product was originally $1,000, now $499, creates a perceived discount anchor, even if the item rarely, if ever, sold at the original high price.
Another effective tactic is temporal manipulation.
Yes. Instead of stating a large, intimidating, some say a $500 annual membership fee, they break it down into a less painful frame, under $50 a month.
So your brain focuses on the smaller, easier to swallow monthly fee.
Exactly. It minimizes the psychological impact of the total annual expenditure.
Okay, factor 2, price quality inferences. We automatically assume, especially for certain products, that a higher price means higher quality.
This is most true for ego-sensitive products, things we buy to convey status or self-worth, like perfume, designer suits, and fine wine.
So the product itself is only part of what you're buying.
For instance, that $100 bottle of perfume might only contain $10 worth of raw scent, but the buyer is paying $90 for the bottle, the brand, and the communication of high regard.
This can create a truly counterintuitive effect for luxury goods.
It can. If exclusivity is the desired attribute, a high price actually increases demand among that specific status-seeking segment.
Why is that?
The high price justifies their premium status because they know most others cannot afford it, which is why price cuts on luxury items are so detrimental.
You don't just compromise margin.
They fundamentally compromise the core value proposition of exclusivity.
Finally, factor 3, price endings. The incredible power of the number 9 at the end of a price.
This stems from the way consumers process information left to right. When you see $299, your mind registers the 2 first, locking the price into the $200 range.
And that creates a significant mental separation from $300.
Yes, the change of a single digit affects the perceived magnitude of the price tag.
The cited study on the dress is remarkable.
It is. Demand increased by 1/3 when the price was raised from $34 to $39, but that demand gain was completely erased when the price rose from $34 to $44.
So the move from 34 to 39 tapped into that 9 ending perception of a bargain.
It's a powerful price cue. along with simple sale signs. However, it's important to note that the effectiveness of these cues is inversely related to customer price knowledge.
Meaning,
They work best when consumers buy the item infrequently or are new to the category. The more you use them, the less potent they become as consumers learn to ignore the signaling.
now we move from the external forces and psychological context into the internal strategic work, the systematic six-step process companies use to set an initial price. Step 1 is the bedrock, selecting the pricing objective.
Right. Before a single price is calculated, the firm must clearly define its goal. Are they focused on survival, maximizing current profit, achieving market share leadership,
There are a lot of options.
maximizing market skimming, or establishing product quality leadership? That choice dictates the entire strategy.
And two of those objectives represent the classic strategic trade-off: market skimming versus market penetration.
Skimming, or maximizing market skimming, starts with a very high initial price and slowly drops it over time. The goal is to maximize current revenue from early adopters who are eager to pay a premium.
And when does this strategy work best?
This works best when there is high current demand, the cost of producing a small volume isn't prohibitive, and the high initial price doesn't attract too many immediate competitors.
Sony frequently uses this approach. They introduced the first consumer HD TV in 1990 for $43,000.
An incredible price.
20 years later, a comparable TV cost just $600. They successfully skimmed the high-end enthusiasts first.
But skimming carries a significant immediate risk, alienating those high-value early adopters when the price drops sharply.
And the definitive example of that failure is the Apple iPhone launch.
It is. The initial price was set high, $600. Just 2 months later, Apple dropped the price to $400.
And people were not happy.
The immediate, intense customer outcry from those who had lined up and paid a substantial premium was so severe that Apple had to issue a $100 credit to those initial buyers. That move underscores the fragile nature of skimming when the price decline is too rapid.
Contrast that with market penetration pricing, which aims to maximize long-run market share by setting the lowest possible price right out of the gate.
This is the Texas Instruments model: build a large, efficient plant, set a rock-bottom price, gain market share quickly, and then continue cutting the price as volume increases and costs fall.
So it's about scale.
This strategy thrives when the market is extremely price-sensitive, meaning a low price stimulates massive demand, and when costs fall significantly as production volume increases. The low price also acts as a huge barrier, discouraging smaller competitors from even attempting to enter the market.
Once the objective is clear, the firm moves to step 2, determining demand. This step requires measuring the relationship between the price charged and the resulting quantity demanded.
Right, we're talking about price elasticity. If demand changes very little when the price shifts, it's inelastic. If a small price change leads to a massive shift in demand, it's elastic.
And the general rule.
Generally, if demand is elastic, the firm will increase its total revenue by lowering the price, provided that the increased volume doesn't inflate production costs beyond the revenue gain.
We mentioned the broad academic finding that the average price elasticity across all products studied is around -2.62.
Which means a 1% decrease in price yields, on average, a 2.62% increase in volume. That responsiveness means firms have to be extremely strategic.
And firms don't just measure elasticity, they actively work to reduce it.
They do. They want their customers to be less price sensitive. How do you do that? By making the product more distinctive through branding, patents, or unique features, so the customer sees fewer substitutes.
And there are other factors.
Also, if the purchase is a small part of the buyer's total income, or if the product offers a high total cost of ownership, or TCO advantage down the line, saving the customer money in maintenance, fuel, or repairs, they become less sensitive to the initial sticker price.
So how do companies actually estimate their demand curve? What are the practical methods?
The first is basic surveys, asking consumers about their buying intentions at various prices. While simple, this can be misleading because consumers often exaggerate their willingness to pay for something new.
So what's more reliable?
Second, firms use price experiments. E-businesses are masters of this through A/B testing, where different prices are quoted dynamically to a small percentage of website visitors to see the exact purchase response.
That real-time A/B testing on pricing is a huge advantage the digital age offers.
It is. The third method is statistical analysis of historical data, modeling the relationship between price, quantity, competitor prices, and other factors.
Like the retail example with the power drills.
Exactly. They had good better and best drills priced at 90, 120, and 130. The middle drill, the 120 option, lagged significantly.
And after data-driven analysis, they dropped the price of the mid-tier drill to 110. What was the result?
The low-priced $90 drill actually saw its sales drop by 4% because suddenly, compared to the new 110 anchor, the $90 drill looked less like a bargain and more like a significant compromise in quality.
Meanwhile, the mid-priced drill took off.
Sales of the now 110 mid-priced drill jumped 11%, leading to higher overall profits. The price change wasn't just about the 120 drill, it changed the perception of all three offerings.
That is proof that pricing is always relative, never absolute. Now for step 3, estimating costs. This step sets the absolute floor for your price.
Right. We must categorize costs correctly. Fixed costs overhead that doesn't vary with production, like rent, R&D, salaries, and variable costs directly tied to production volume, like raw materials and packaging.
And the average cost is just the total divided by the units.
Right. But costs aren't static, they fall as experience builds, which is a powerful concept for strategic pricing.
This is the experience curve or learning curve.
Exactly. As a company accumulates production, experienced workers become faster, engineers optimize processes, supply chain management improves, the average cost per unit falls predictably. If the cost of the 100,000th unit was $10, the cost of the 400,000th unit might drop to $8.
This phenomenon rewards aggressive pricing, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It heavily favors the market penetration strategy. The firm that drives for the largest market share early on, using low prices, benefits from the steepest cost reduction curve, making it almost impossible for competitors starting later to catch up.
They get locked out.
They're locked out by the efficiency wall the leader has built.
But relying on the experience curve is a big gamble.
It is, because it can create a reputation for cheapness. And crucially, if a competitor suddenly innovates with a completely new, lower-cost technology, the market leader is stuck with an obsolete manufacturing plant and processes that rely on the old, expensive-to-maintain learning curve.
To counter that risk, many market-driven companies flip the cost-based model entirely using target costing.
Target costing starts with the market, not the factory. You determine the price customers are willing to pay based on competition and demand.
Then you work backward.
Then you subtract your desired profit margin. The remainder is the target cost that the design, engineering, procurement, and manufacturing teams must achieve.
This requires a relentless focus on efficiency from the very first design sketch. It's a market mandate.
The Conagra Foods example with banquet frozen dinners perfectly illustrates the market mandate. When commodity costs rose, Conagra tried to raise the retail price from the key $1 point to $1.25.
And sales dropped.
Immediately. The $1 price point was deemed non-negotiable by the consumer segment. Conagra was forced to commit to returning to that price point, which meant an internal mandate to cut $250 million in costs.
How did they do it?
They centralized purchasing, used less expensive ingredients, and even reduced portion sizes. They didn't price based on cost. They engineered the cost to meet the price the market demanded.
Having established the cost floor, we move to step 4, analyzing competitors' costs, prices, and offers. Because that floor doesn't mean much if your nearest rival is selling a comparable product for less.
Exactly. This is where strategic comparison becomes analytical, not just observational. A firm must start with the competitor's price and then adjust it by the monetary value of any unique feature it offers or lacks compared to the rival.
Can you give an example?
If your machine saves the customer 2 hours of labor per went, you quantify that savings and add it to the competitor's price to determine your competitive ceiling.
A modern example of this is Clorox's entry into the natural cleaning market with Greenworks. Competitors like Method and 7th generation were charging a massive 40% or more premium over conventional cleaners.
Clorox recognized that this premium created a barrier to mass adoption. Their strategic analysis showed that the market wanted natural cleaners, but only if they were affordable products that are good for consumers.
So they came in lower.
By charging only a 10 to 20% premium over conventional brands, they positioned themselves aggressively between the expensive naturals and the cheap chemicals.
That move didn't just compete, it exploded the category.
It did. By offering affordability and a recognized brand name, they doubled the size of the natural cleaning category and quickly grabbed a dominant 42% market share. They effectively redefined what the competitive price ceiling should be for that segment.
Moving to step 5, selecting a pricing method. We have 6 core methods, starting with the most elementary and popular. markup pricing, or cost plus?
This is simply adding a standard percentage markup to the product's unit cost. It's popular among construction companies, lawyers, and accounting firms because it's simple to calculate, transparent, and easy to justify to clients. It seems fair.
But its primary flaw is devastating.
It entirely ignores demand, perceived value, and competitor pricing. It assumes the markup will generate the volume needed to cover fixed costs.
And if it doesn't?
If the markup price is too high for the market, sales volume plummets and the average cost per unit skyrockets, making the entire premise fail.
The Parker-Hannifin case proved this rigidity was leaving massive revenue potential untapped.
Parker-Hannifin, which makes 800,000 industrial parts, historically used a fixed 35% markup. When they shifted to a more strategic, value-based approach, analysts found that 28% of their products were priced below what the market would bear in non-competitive niches.
So they're worrying money on the table.
A lot of it. They successfully raised prices on those items by up to 60%, realizing that the standardized markup was actually punishing their unique advantage in certain specialty areas.
Contrast that mechanical approach with perceived value pricing.
This method bases the price not on the seller's cost, but on the perceived total value the customer receives from the full offering: product performance, reputation, warranty, and customer service.
Caterpillar Construction Equipment is the benchmark here.
It is. A Caterpillar excavator might list at $100,000, $10,000 more than a key competitor. But the sales representative can demonstrate that the Caterpillar offers superior reliability, better fuel efficiency, higher resale value, and faster dealer service, generating an estimated $20,000 in superior lifetime value.
So the customer willingly pays the premium.
They pay the $10,000 premium because they are convinced the long-term TCO is lower.
Next, we have value pricing, which is often confused with just being cheap.
It's not cheap. It's high quality offered at a low price, achieved through ruthlessly efficient cost reengineering. Companies like IKEA and P&G are experts.
They strip out all non-essential costs.
Exactly. For instance, IKEA forcing customers to assemble their own furniture that allows them to hit the target price point without sacrificing the core functionality or quality.
Within value pricing, we see the contrast between everyday low pricing, EDLP, and high-low pricing.
Walmart is the icon of EDLP. A constant, low price with minimal promotions. This removes price uncertainty for the consumer.
I know.
High-low pricing, conversely, involves higher everyday prices but frequent, deep promotional sales used by most major department stores. High-low requires heavy promotional advertising and often confuses consumers who never know when the right time to buy is.
EDLP requires extraordinary cost management, which is why the rise of dollar stores exemplifies the mastery of extreme EDLP.
The Dollar General and Family Dollar model is simplicity perfected. They locate small stores in inexpensive areas, keep decor minimal, limit inventory to fast-moving staples, and opportunistic overstocks.
And they keep operations simple.
They often limit payment processing to cash or basic systems to avoid high credit card fees. This ultra-discount strategy minimizes overhead and supply chain friction, allowing them to remain profitable at prices that larger retailers can't touch.
Finally, let's look at auction-type pricing, which has expanded dramatically with digital marketplaces.
There are three main forms. The English option is the ascending bid model we know from eBay and Real Estate One Seller, many buyers.
And the Dutch auction.
The Dutch auction is descending, often used for quickly selling perishable goods or large batches of financial instruments. The price starts high and drops until a buyer accepts.
But it's also used in reverse.
Crucially, the Dutch model is used in reverse for corporate procurement, where Pfizer might use a reverse auction, asking suppliers to submit continually lower bids for a specific chemical until the lowest cost is secured.
And the sealed bid auction.
That's usually for government or industrial procurement. Suppliers submit one price bid, ignorant of the others. This is ideal when the government is seeking the cheapest price without price collusion.
That brings us to step 6, selecting the final price. This is the moment where all the strategy, psychology, and competitive analysis meet.
It is, and it often requires adjustments based on other marketing activities. It's the final calculation of risk and reward.
And there's a strong correlation with other marketing efforts.
Research consistently shows that high prices are strongly correlated with high relative quality and high relative advertising. Consumers are willing to pay a premium for known products with strong brand narratives and quality signals.
We also see the rise of gain and risk-sharing pricing to overcome buyer reluctance on high-cost, high-risk proposals.
Right. If the buyer is skeptical that a new piece of high-cost industrial equipment will deliver the promised efficiency savings, the seller offers to absorb some of that risk.
Like the Baxter Healthcare example.
Baxter Healthcare, for example, guaranteed a hospital client millions of dollars in savings over 8 years by installing their automated systems. If those savings weren't realized, Baxter would compensate the client. This shifts the focus from the initial price to the guaranteed outcome.
And finally, we must discuss the pervasive strategy of stealth increases.
Yes.
Avoiding raising the list price while adding new fees for services that were once free.
This is rampant in the telecom, banking, and credit card industries. Telecoms add regulatory assessment fees or setup charges. Banks, when prevented by new regulations from raising late payment fees, simply introduced new fees like inactivity charges.
How do they justify it?
Companies justify this by claiming it's a fairer structure, charging a premium only to those who use the added service or who perform the high-cost behavior, like letting an account go dormant.
But the result is clear. These hidden fees make it extremely difficult for consumers to compare competitive offerings, effectively masking the true cost of inflation and service. Once that baseline price is set, firms rarely sell everything at that single number. They must develop a complex pricing structure to adapt to different geographical markets, customer segments, and timing variations.
Starting with geographical pricing, how companies manage pricing across international borders. The key complexity here is dealing with markets that lack hard currency, necessitating the use of countertrade.
And countertrade is a big deal.
It accounts for a substantial 15 to 20% of world trade, and it takes 4 main forms, starting with the simplest, barter.
Direct trade.
Barter is a direct exchange of goods for goods, with no money involved. This is logistically complex because you have to align the needs of both parties, and valuing the goods accurately can be subjective.
Second is a compensation deal.
Here, the seller receives a portion of the payment in cash and the rest in products. For instance, a European airplane manufacturer might sell jets to Brazil for 70% cash and receive the remaining 30% in highly valued Brazilian coffee for re-export.
That mitigates the risk for the buyer.
It does. Third is a buyback arrangement. This is common when selling equipment or technology.
How does it work?
The seller receives partial cash payment for the equipment, but agrees to accept as the remainder of the payment the products manufactured using that very equipment.
So the seller has become a distributor.
Precisely. And the fourth is offset. In an offset deal, the seller receives full payment in cash, but must agree to spend a substantial predetermined amount of that money in the buying country within a set time period.
The PepsiCo example is a classic.
It is. They sold cola syrup to the Soviet Union for local rubles, and in return agreed to buy Russian Stolichnaya vodka at a certain rate to distribute and sell in the United States, effectively helping the Soviet economy.
These are clearly complex transactions.
Highly dependent on precise valuation and international trade law.
Moving to domestic price adjustments, we have discounts and promotional pricing. Companies adjust the list price through discounts for early payment, volume purchases, or off-season buying. But the constant reliance on promotions is costly.
It erodes the perceived value of the product and can train customers to only buy during sales. This is why management absolutely must perform a net price analysis.
What does that entail?
They need to track the gap between the list price and the realized net price, which is the list price minus all the discounts, promotional spending, rebates, and allowances.
So if the list price is $3,000, but the realized price is $2,100.
Then the firm's profitability analysis must be based on that $2,100 figure, not the theoretical $3,000.
Promotional pricing includes tactics designed for short-term stimulation. Loss leader pricing, for instance.
Right. They drop the price on a highly recognizable brand milk, eggs, Coca-Cola to drive foot traffic into the store with the expectation that customers will buy higher margin items while they are there.
Other common tactics include cash rebates, used frequently by auto companies to clear inventory without cutting the official list price.
Or low-interest financing, where consumers are anchored to the manageable monthly payment rather than the total cost or interest accrued.
And we return to psychological discounting, such as marking an item was $3.59, now $2.99, to suggest a massive bargain.
Right, and the source points out that in some cases, the WAS price might never have been the selling price at all, serving purely as a reference price anchor.
Finally, the most complex adaptation strategy is differentiated pricing or price discrimination.
which is charging two or more prices that do not reflect a proportional difference in costs.
Now, there are 3 degrees of this.
We define 3 degrees of discrimination. First degree is the theoretical ideal, charging a unique, optimized price to every customer based on their individual intensity of demand. Technology makes this increasingly possible.
And second and third.
Second degree is charging less for larger volumes, like tiered data plans or quantity discounts. And third degree is charging different amounts to different identifiable classes of buyers.
Let's elaborate on the 6 types of third-degree discrimination. First, customer segment pricing.
Like museums charging different rates for students, adults, and seniors.
Second, product form pricing.
Right. Evian water sold as a large 48-ounce bottle in the grocery store versus the exact same water sold as a 1.7-ounce moisturizer spray at a massive price per ounce difference based on the perceived application.
Third, image pricing.
Selling the exact same perfume in 2 different bottles under 2 different brand names at vastly different price points, using branding and advertising to create separate luxury images.
Fourth, channel pricing.
Coca-Cola costing one price at a fast food counter, another price in a grocery store, and a significantly higher price in an airport vending machine or a fine dining restaurant.
Fifth is location pricing, and sixth is time pricing.
Like theater seats costing different amounts or utilities varying rates by time of day.
The most sophisticated combination of these factors is yield management, used extensively by airlines and hotels.
It's a highly complex algorithmic system designed to dynamically adjust prices in real time to maximize revenue by forecasting demand and inventory risk.
Continental Airlines, for example, manages over 7 million individual prices dynamically. How does the algorithm work to punish procrastinators, as the source states?
It works by using the concept of inventory risk. The system knows that a customer purchasing a ticket far in advance is highly price-sensitive, so they receive a deep discount to secure the volume.
But the business traveler is different.
Conversely, a business traveler booking 48 hours out has highly inelastic demand. They must travel. The algorithm reserves a portion of inventory for those high-margin last-minute sales.
So by delaying your purchase, you move into a different inventory window.
You move into the inventory window reserved for those with the least price sensitivity, resulting in you paying the absolute maximum possible price. Hence, the system punishing procrastination.
That's why you might pay $200 and the person next to you paid $1,290.
They entered the market at completely different demand profiles.
Companies frequently need to adjust their core price. Let's start with initiating price cuts. This is often driven by excess plant capacity, forcing firms to stimulate demand, or a strategic drive to dominate the market through lower costs.
But cutting prices is often a trap. The sources highlight 4 major pitfalls.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, the low-quality trap. Consumers instantly assume quality has dropped. Second, the fragile market share trap. The low price buys sales volume, but not customer loyalty.
So the moment a competitor cuts their price further, that volume vanishes.
Exactly. Third, the shallow pockets trap. If the price cutter is a small firm, a larger, higher-priced competitor with deeper cash reserves can simply match the low price and wait for the smaller firm to bleed capital and run out of money.
And finally, the ultimate danger.
The price war trap, where competitors continually retaliate by cutting their own prices deeper and deeper, leading to a profitless race to the bottom that harms the entire industry structure.
On the other hand, initiating price increases offers immense profit potential.
The leverage of pricing is mathematically stunning.
It really is. If a company's operating margin is, say, 3% of sales, a mere 1% price increase can translate into a 33% increase in profit, provided sales volume holds steady.
Major reasons for increases include cost inflation, which often requires anticipatory pricing, raising prices slightly more than the cost increase in anticipation of future inflation.
Or the opposite.
Over demand, where prices are raised to ration supplies to the most highly valued buyers.
Firms need sophisticated ways to implement increases without customer resentment. What are the best methods to soften the blow?
First, delayed quotation pricing. This is common in long lead time industries. The final price isn't set until the product is finished or delivered, allowing the price to reflect current costs accurately. Second, escalator clauses for industrial projects. The customer pays today's price, but they must also agree to pay any inflation increase that occurs before the delivery date.
Third, unbundling.
The company keeps the list price stable, but removes features that were once free delivery, installation, or basic service, and prices them separately. The customer can then choose to pay for them or forgo them and keep the cost low.
And if they really want to avoid touching the list price, they revert to the stealth methods we discussed.
Right. Shrinking the product size, like Hershey's reducing the weight of its candy bars, substituting less expensive materials, using synthetic chocolate when cocoa prices spike, or reducing product features entirely.
Sears did that with their appliances.
They did, removing non-essential features from appliances to compete with discount stores.
Finally, how should a firm respond when a competitor initiates a price change?
If the competitor cuts prices, the response depends heavily on the homogeneity of the product and the competitor's intent. If your product is highly differentiated, you may choose to ignore the cut or simply search for ways to enhance your augmented product.
So add more value through service or guarantees.
Exactly, to justify your higher price. But if the product is a commodity, you may be forced to meet the cut or risk losing volume entirely.
For a large market leader facing attack from low-priced competitors, think the classic rivalry between AMD and Intel or Fuji and Kodak, they have three classic options.
1. Further differentiate their product and service, focusing on segments that value quality and reliability over price. 2. Introduce its own low-cost venture, a separate brand or business unit, to compete directly in that price segment without damaging the reputation of the core high-end brand.
And the third path.
Or 3, the most radical path, reinvent entirely as a low-cost player.
And the case study that embodies that third path, and which has perfected the strategic use of pricing to achieve dominance, is Southwest Airlines.
Southwest's success is built on a cost structure that is essentially differentiation in reverse. Their entire operation is optimized for speed and efficiency.
How so?
Point-to-point flights, flying only one type of aircraft, the Boeing 737, to simplify maintenance and crew training, and achieving turnaround times of 20 to 30 minutes, half the industry average.
That structural efficiency allows them to consistently maintain a lower cost floor than every competitor.
Which enables them to undercut rivals while remaining profitable.
And that structural advantage paid off long term.
It ensured profitability for 37 consecutive years, even through severe economic contractions and industry shocks like 9/11, while other major carriers suffered massive losses.
So they demonstrated that value pricing, when supported by unmatched cost efficiency, is the ultimate source of pricing power. This deep dive has shown us that pricing is a blend of hard math, behavioral science, and competitive maneuvering.
It really is.
It requires establishing a cost floor via meticulous engineering, determining the demand ceiling using elasticity analysis, and then setting the final number based on a sophisticated understanding of competitive positioning and customer psychology.
The tension we explored between the price signaling exclusivity and the price signaling bargain is what makes this topic so continuously dynamic. The most effective pricing strategies are those that recognize this tension and use it to strategically communicate value to specific segments.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? We've seen that in certain markets, high prices can actually increase demand, and conversely, low prices can signal unacceptable quality. This brings us back to that core philosophical question that frames all commerce. Is the right price a fair price?
It's a great question. Should the price of a life-saving drug, a designer t-shirt, or a plane ticket reflect merely the cost of production? Or should it reflect the maximum value status, convenience, or exclusivity that consumers are willing to pay?
And that's becoming more relevant now.
As technology increasingly allows for first-degree price discrimination, maximizing revenue by charging every customer what they're willing to pay, that ethical debate becomes more central to modern life.
As you navigate your next significant purchase, we challenge you to analyze your own purchasing behavior. Which of these pricing methods do you, as a consumer, find yourself preferring to deal with, and why?
Do you like the stability and certainty of Walmart's EDLP, the perceived value of a brand like Caterpillar, or the thrill and transparency of auction-type pricing?
The preference you hold often reveals the segment you belong to, and that self-awareness is invaluable power.